All right, well, welcome to another edition of my Create the Ripple podcast, where we trust the niggle and we tell the truth. My guest today is a special one. She and I, of course, as usual, engaged in my usual pre recording conversation, and I instantly felt a kinship with her. And I'm so excited to learn more about her with you all as we move forward into our recording today. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let her share who she is, how she got here, give us a little bit of a bio, and then I've definitely got some questions for her. And so, sit back, listen, grab your favorite cup of tea, and without further ado, Donna, call is yours.
Thank you very much. Um, as you mentioned, my name is Donna James, and I was trapped in an abusive marriage for 7 years. We had dated for 3, so I thought I did my homework, and he was very charming. And I finally was able to leave, got the courage to leave, and left with my 2 young boys. We planned it because we had tried before to leave, and that did not work very well. So I just had to start from scratch. I had no money, I had no confidence, no courage, and I just, had my 2 boys and myself. So we left, and I started my journey of healing and rebuilding my confidence, rebuilding my boys' confidence, and just getting the strength back and learning from it. And during that time, a lot of people started seeing my transformation, so they started asking me for help. And I started coaching women before I knew what coaching was. And I would even have, it was the oddest thing, because I would even have strangers come up to me and start opening up to me, if I was like at a food court. And it was just so weird, because I thought, do I have a sign on me or something? Because they would tell me their experience. And
Mhm.
so it was just a very natural way that it occurred, and started helping women. And that has been my passion since then, because I did find during the process is, therapists are wonderful, and they definitely have their strengths and their purposes. But I found for my situation, because nobody had been through it, I was being given textbook advice. There was advice I couldn't use. I mean, when you're scared to death of somebody, you can't just go home and say, I'm going to be assertive today. And it doesn't work that way. So um, I just realized that there was kind of this gap area where women could get some help from someone, that has been through it and can understand and relate to it, isn't going to judge. Because I mean, I've had clients who have said that they've had therapists who told them that their spouse's abuse was their love language, and that they should stay, and so I think it's really beneficial when you have someone that's been through it.
I agree. And I think that's really powerful. And, kudos to you for being willing to talk about it. Because I know that for a lot of us, survivors and thrivers, right, we've come through it now, is that there can be a lot of shame, right? Guilt and shame that can keep us silent for a long time. That comes from the gaslighting. And I did a podcast with Randy King Live, and he's the self defense and confidence coach. And one of his favorite things to talk about is to talk about people that have been in situations where they've been, abused in one way or another. And it was really powerful for me because he had talked about, you do the best with what you can. But a lot of times, these people who do this, right, ex-husbands and, other people that, that might, they've been doing this a long time. And usually, at least for myself, I know I wasn't the first victim, right? Because the language was used like, well, I've done this before. And, so and so before you didn't have a big deal with it. And I can't help but think of that, even though you did your research, and the person in my life that I can relate this to, it was so subtle how it started that I remember getting out and thinking, it's like you peel the layers off, right?
Mhm.
And go, how did I get myself into that? And why was that okay? But it happens on such a subtle level that really smart, beautiful, intelligent women end up in these situations that we then have to make drastic measures and get ourselves out of. So kudos to you for finding that courage, not just for yourself, but for your boys. And you and I were talking briefly that you had really made a commitment to allow your kids to still be present in their dad's life, which is huge for you. How was that for you though, as you were sending, your kids to spend time with dad? That's something I struggle with. So wouldn't mind some feedback from someone who's lived through it on that.
Well, one of the first things I said to all my family and friends is that there's going to be no negative talk about their dad, because as much as, yes, he may have done terrible things in that, they're still half their dad.
Yeah.
So if people are saying this guy's a monster,
Mm.
I think they're, half monster.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, very aware of that. And that was a rule that I had from the beginning. And, they were only 2 and 5 when I left. And I said that one day they will figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't going to be the reason. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to be the reason. I made it very clear with him why he didn't have a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
So he could either smarten up
Mm-hmm.
and, he could see the kids. I mean, it's court rules that,
Yes.
they're able to have their rights, which at times you wonder, because what about the rights of children?
I wonder. Yes, I hear you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I just, at first it was he had to have visitation with his parents present,
Mm-hmm.
and then gradually have them on his own. But the moment I had my children in therapy, and the moment there was any problems or anything, I would stop his access to them. And it only took, 2 or 3 times of me doing that where he realized, okay, I'm not in control in that regards anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He would still, try and manipulate them, because they're, like you said, the gaslighting and the lies. And it was so subtle with me, and I knew it would be subtle with them. So I just made sure that I, would tell them that their dad loved them.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, maybe he did things that weren't always nice and weren't right, but they needed to talk to me about it. Don't hide anything, don't, no secrets. And they actually are so incredibly strong with him. They're respectful and they're loving, but they don't put up with any of his crap. They call him out on it all the time, and all with a sense of humor almost. And that really makes me proud, because sense of humor is a lifesaver, I think. I look at all the things that he did and still be angry about it, and that's not going to do anything for any of us. It's all it does is it just gives him more power in the long run and allows him to take even more away from us.
Yeah.
So, we look back and laugh at how just weird, and you can't even come up with words.
I know. Some of the things, boggle your mind, but
Yeah.
maybe that's part of the lesson too, right? Like as you and I were sharing, right? That I don't do well in limbo. And so finding myself remaining in limbo in a situation I would choose not to be in has been, an incredible learning experience, right? And I have to ask myself, what is this teaching me right now? Anyway, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing so honestly about, that whole transition, and kudos to you for taking the time to make sure that you really set the tone for the relationship moving forward. I think the words that we use, right? Words are what created the world, right? Sound is everything, everything vibrates. And I think we create our world with our words.
Yeah.
They start here, right? And then they come out of here, which is that's a great way to know where people are really at based on how they speak to you and how they speak to themselves. So you started doing coaching, like you say, before you knew that coaching was a thing, which I absolutely adore. You have no idea. The number of things in my life that I think I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just started doing it. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is the thing. So I'd love to know how that has transitioned, because obviously that was part of the reason why you and I were talking today. Is I've recently become very, very aware that with the pandemic going on, there has been a huge rise in violence against women and children. And, the May edition of the Create the Ripple magazine, which is an impact influencer magazine where we talk about issues, and the people who are doing something about them, right? Because there's a lot of, you and me people who are saying, hey, I can't fix all the problems, but I have this little thing I'm passionate about. I'm going to talk about. So I'd love if you could share more about that. From that reason, we got connected and take us on that journey.
Well, it was a very humbling experience at the beginning because I would have, women that would talk to me. And I just thought I was kind of a person they could talk to. And then I started hearing that these women went home and actually left their spouse after talking to me. And I thought, oh my God, I can have an effect. I can do something to help it, even if it's one person, if it's one family, mom and your kids that can get out. And, so that was really what drove it and my passion. And I know some people, when they start talking to me, they're like, but you're so happy and laughing. And how did you go through this? And it's, I guess that's part of it, is that they feel comfortable talking to me. They feel at ease. And, like you had mentioned, the shame that's involved in it, and the embarrassment about it, and also how gradual it is, because that is something, and that I think is just a societal thing that we have to educate more, because there's so much judgment. And when you're in a situation like that, you're your worst critic. The
Oh my
last
God.
thing you need is to hear someone else judging you, or it can even just be subtle comments like, well, let's just leave. Just leave. And if you don't leave, well, then it's not worth it, or it must not be that bad.
Mhm.
And, just to educate people that it isn't that way. And until you're in it, you can never understand it. And, that's why I, tell people, I'm not here to tell you to leave. I'm here to help you understand, get the courage and the confidence
Mhm.
so that you can make the decision, and when it's good time for you to leave, because we all know that's the most dangerous time for a woman, is to leave.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things that I help them with, what they can get ready, what they can get prepared,
Mm.
all of that. But it's being supportive, helping them through it, and just helping their confidence, because our confidence, I think, is one of the most valuable and powerful things that we can have. And it helps us in life and in love and at work. And, that's something, if I can help them with that. So, and as you mentioned with the pandemic, what I've been seeing even more so is, for women, our only escape, if we're working or if our husband was working, sometimes that was our only time away. It wasn't fully away because they were in control, but it was kind of your time to be away from them. And now with businesses being shut down and people having to work from home, that is really difficult, because now they're with them all the time. The shelters are full.
Mhm.
And I've had clients that they're like, I don't even know how I can talk to you because he's here all the time. And, I'm like, okay, well, do you go get groceries? Yes. Call me from the parking lot. We'll
Mhm.
talk. You just make it work for them. But yeah, I think, again, as society, we need to be more aware of what to watch for. The movie style myths that you're going to see a woman walk out with sunglasses and she's got a bruise, black eye underneath it, or covering up bruises. Yes, that happens, but majority of forms of abuse are not physical.
No.
And so there's so much more we need to watch for. And
Mhm.
for me, it was, I know for my employer, what they noticed was I would freak out if I was going to be late, because I knew if I was late getting home and didn't have his dinner ready, I would be in trouble. And, so they noticed this, and they noticed him calling me several times a day. And my whole demeanor apparently would just change because I was so afraid of what, he would call me up and yell at me and tell me, just wait till you get home, and things like that, that just really play mind games with you. So, right now is just so unprecedented for them because they are stuck at home, you know. And so I think as a society, we need to kind of watch
for that. Yes. Hey, it's Candice. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called Biocell. Biocell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not got into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be our customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show, and without any further ado, back to the show.
Yeah.
I think too, and this was really important for me, and so I want to bring it up. But because my partners, because it was certainly a habit in terms of men I had dated, is that the abuse wasn't physical, right? There were no bruises, but for me, words of affirmation is my love language, and when I really acknowledged that and realized that each one of these people had known that, right? I know what my love languages are. And of course, in the beginning, you talk about that kind of stuff. So when someone says something negative and designed to hurt, that it literally feels like a wound. And it wasn't until I was doing some, shadow work and journaling, which was a huge therapeutic thing for me, just to sort of work through everything where I could say exactly what I wanted to say without it reverberating right through the rest of the world. Was, I would often react physically to those words. And I thought that is abuse. And there was sort of I had to let myself know that, right? That was abuse, or some of the financial abuse. And this has been something I've been really talking about in my divorce and in some of these things. And I'm like, not all abuse is physical, ladies. Some of it is financial abuse. It is mental abuse. It is emotional abuse. It is right? Like you got to think about these things, verbal abuse, and we tend to rate them on a scale, right? Well, at least he doesn't hit me. Well, yeah, it depends, right? Like abuse is abuse, and your reaction to it is, what's the most important thing. And then, we go to setting boundaries, which that's tough to do, especially when you've never learned how to do that. And, when are we taught how to set great boundaries? And people say, well, I grew up in a great home. I said, right, but did someone ever teach you what boundaries meant? That when that niggle goes off, I don't like this. I don't know why I don't like this. I just don't like it. And then you say that to these people, hey, I'm not totally cool with that, or I don't really want to go there. I want to do this. And those person don't acknowledge that, right? Or, oh, blow it off, right? There's a fine line between partners disagreeing constructively and that subtle gaslighting. But, like I can remember going into conversations, and I'm sure there are women listening who are like, I would say, hey, I have a concern about our relationship. It would always be my fault. And it took somebody like you saying to me, that's abuse too. It's not always your fault. And I was like, it isn't? And that's scary when you realize you're questioning your own mind. And that's when you're like, that was a huge, I have got to, like, wow, how did it get there? And that's a scary moment.
Yeah. And it is, I denied that there was any abuse for so long because it wasn't
Yeah.
physical at first. And, everyone there's, and I don't want to lump them all together, but abusers are master manipulators.
Oh my God.
And, they know that if they start off right off the bat, first date acting this way, they're not going to have a victim. So they're very charming. And because they're so charming and they charm everyone around you, you see that and you think to yourself, well, he's only always mad at me, and I'm always making him mad and upset. So obviously it's my fault. So there's the manipulation and the verbal and the mental and the emotional abuse that they'll throw at you, but there's also these games that they play where they charm everyone around you so that people look at you like you're the one who's losing your mind. Because he's a great guy.
I'm like, but he's so good and he's so nice. And when I saw him, he was this and he's all that. And I'm going, and it's often from other women. And I like saying, hey, don't diminish my experience behind a closed door just because what you see out here. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying this is toxic right here. And my experience needs to be validated. And I can remember that so clearly. And so since if someone says something to me, as they're sharing their experience, I don't think, well, I've never seen that. I think, okay, I acknowledge that. That's real for you. Then what are you going to do about it? What do you need to figure out what you're going to do about it? And you're right. When people say, well, we'll just leave. I remember I knew at 3 weeks pregnant that I was probably in the wrong place and wasn't going to be supported the way I wanted to. And the fear started then, which I shoved down because I was like, what? Like, no, it's just nerves. It's just whatever. And by 3 months, I can remember where I was, what I was wearing, what had happened. I remember thinking, I should leave now. I should leave right now. And the thought that followed was, well, what would I say to people? Like, how would I explain what I can't even explain that I just know in my core? And then I've said it since. I'm like, I should have left, but I didn't find the courage for years later when I just finally left.
Yeah. But that's part of it, is they get you doubting yourself and your own judgment. Things that would have, years before you'd met them would have just, said, oh,
Right.
hey, something off here. My intuition is just going wild.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's, you don't have that anymore. You don't listen to it. And not because a person's not strong enough. So one thing I tell my clients is that, because they're like, I'm just so weak. And I'm like, you are not weak. If you ask me, a victim of abuse is strong. because to
Really strong.
oh God, like I've seen, women that
Mhm.
break down and cry because, the movie they want to go to is filled,
Yeah.
and it's like, let's just take, a look at what's going on here. And once they start realizing that, okay, yeah, I do have some strength in me because I have put up with this and I have stayed, not necessarily out of weakness, but out of survival.
Mhm.
And a lot of people assume too that, well, the abuse is just on them. But so often the abuse is they're threatening their children, they're
Mhm.
threatening their family members, they're threatening friends, their job. There's all these things that are encompassed, and you throw in financial abuse to that. And now a pandemic, you know, it's just such a hopeless feeling. But, I just want people to know you can get out. I
Mhm.
mean, if I can start from nothing, if you were financially abused, you know what it's
Oh
like
my
to
word. Yeah.
start all over again. But you're doing it on your terms, and that's what's so powerful and empowering is, that you figure it out. And
You do. And I mean, even the other day, someone said, great, because there's some really good things happening in my life right now, right? And someone said, well, what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? And I was like, listen, I worked really diligently to set myself up. So I'm keeping those things. I am, building new relationships. I'm creating this life that I want. And I'm doing so with a lot more smarts, wisdom, intelligence, because I don't want to go back there, right? Which is, I think, and you approach everything just so differently moving forward. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm slightly sensitive to guilt laden language, whether it's, clients or people on the phone. I'm just like, hey, that was guilt language. Do you mind just reframing that for me and acknowledging that's a trigger for me? So, I mean, um, there's still some work that needs to be done. But if someone's listening to this, and the last gal I chatted with was sharing the different ways that women can say, hey, I need help if they're on a Zoom and there's actually that sign that they can put their hand up and then, this. And so I want to talk about that. That'll be in the links as well. But I think that especially as women, we need to come together and just create safe spaces if we think someone is in trouble to help them to find ways to communicate that. And then, be a support because it might take them a while before they can leave. But let's say someone is watching this or wants to share with someone, how do they get in touch with you so that, people leave this episode knowing that there's some action steps they can take to support someone?
well, they can get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook, donnajames.ca. And then they can also get in touch with me through my website. I've got donna-james.com. And, they can just reach out and get in touch with me. I mean, I respond really quickly when I do see that it's a client. I mean, I'm busy, but when I see someone's in need, that everything else kind of gets put aside, to help them. But, I do offer a free call as well initially, because I think it's really important that whoever you do talk to, whether it's me or someone else, you have to feel comfortable with them. There needs to be that thought of connection because there's so much trust, and they're so vulnerable that to open up to somebody. And again, I think that's why having been through it helps, because I do understand what it's like. You for yourself, you understand what it's like. So someone talks to you, you know what they're going through. I mean, I've had people on the free call and they just cry, the whole time, but they know someone's there.
Yeah.
And I can just walk them through it.
Wonderful. Well, and of course, we'll make sure that we have, all those details in the show notes. They can be copied and shared and go from there. Yeah, you're right. It's not uncommon, especially now I've really started to talk about my story, kind of coming through it and some of those things. And this podcast was largely started because I've kept my mouth shut for a very long time. and realizing that shame really does live in the dark. And the more that I start to talk about it, right, it's my medicine for sure. And I think it also lets other, women know, hey, Muriel, I forget her last name, but she has a quote that says, what would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? The world would split open. And the first time I heard that, I knew that for me, telling the truth means that I would likely end a relationship, right? And so for me, I was like, that is a splitting open, right? Like that's a tearing apart. And since then, I've really come to realize it's a lot more than that, right? It's like you and I being brave enough to talk very candidly about our own personal experiences. It doesn't, it splits open shame, it splits open guilt, it sort of breaks open those things that were like, actually, you could learn how to set boundaries. You could learn these things. You can get back on your feet. There are other women who have gone through it, been through it, still learning, still growing. This can be you. One of the last podcasts we talked about, we said, and it's probably not going to be easy. And I know I was talking with a gal the other night who just reached out. She said, hey, how did you know when you needed to leave? And I was like, I was going to bed, man. Like that was it. I was done, last minute, check of the Facebook. And I was like, well, not going to bed. I said, and I didn't have to say, what do you mean? I was like, well, I just knew. I knew I'd know a day, and I just left. I can't even tell anywhere. At first I got busy with work and I made sure I wasn't around. And then I slowly started, moving stuff and thinking about, let's pretend I actually left today. What would I do? And I started to do those things so that when I did leave, I actually kind of had a sort of a semi kind of plan. Did it make it any easier? No. But I had started to think like that. If I was going to leave today, what would I do and what would that feel like? But that's just me. I have to get attached to the feeling because I knew that it was going to feel awful and I knew it was going to be awful. And as I shared with you, there are still some ongoing challenges that some days I deal with them well and other days I don't. And, I think that women need to know that because I think if they know we're going to rip the band-aid off and it's still going to bleed,
Yeah.
I think that that's more kind, because then, you've already been this strong to endure for this long. You can definitely endure on the other side because at least now you're doing it for yourself and for the children who are watching you and, like for your boys, right? I think half the reason they are so able to set great boundaries with the dad is because you did and you showed them how to do it. And it's not like their dad's going to be the first one in their life who doesn't respect their boundaries and try to push them around. And so you've actually set them up. And that's something similar like for my little girl is so she knows, hey, I'm not cool with this because she's already had to go through such, circumstances that I didn't when I was, 4, 5, 6. Still had to learn it when I was, 15, 16, 17. Anyway.
Yeah. And it,
I'd love for you to just share with us, Donna, if there's anything else you'd love to share. I know I really enjoyed dialoguing with you because I think it's so important that we do, but I'd love to open the floor for you for anything that's on your mind and your heart to share with our listeners and maybe people that need to be listening.
okay. Thank you. The one thing I just like to let people know is that when you're in the situation, as scary as it is and terrifying as it is, and the thought of leaving is scary and terrifying, which option is going to give you a positive result at the end of it? Which is the only way that you're going to have something good come out of it, because it sure isn't going to be staying. So that's when I kind of decided, if I'm going to be afraid, it's not going to be because of him. It's going to be because I'm doing something to get out. And, I'll be afraid for my boys. How am I going to, feed them, put a roof over their head? But it worked itself out. And, I realized how strong I was. And there was no abuse in our family. I didn't grow up with it. It wasn't something that I had seen. And, I just want women to know that abuse is not physical in most cases. But if you're going through any form of abuse, whether it's verbal, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, chances are it is going to become physical. Because, you know, you think about in the media, every time a woman is killed by her abuser, how often everyone will say, I had no clue, I had no idea, you know, or he was a bit controlling, you know, or he wasn't nice to her all the time, but he never hit her. And that is because they snap. So if any woman is out there and she just feels like she's lost her voice, she's lost her light or her light, you know, in life, and she feels like something's wrong, but she doesn't know what it is, or she feels it's her fault, it's not, you know, and you don't deserve that, and you don't need to live that way. So reach out, talk to someone, give me a call, email me, message me on Facebook. But let's just start that conversation so that it can empower more women to get out of this situation. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that so candidly. And I have to agree 100% with everything that you said. Um, it occurs to me that I'd like to mention that both you and I have gone through a lot of the healing in the process, and we've gone on to have relationships that are very, very different. And I kind of wanted to throw that sense of hope out there, I guess. Once you do the healing work and you show up different, you know, it is possible to then have a relationship, you know, with a romantic partner that looks nothing like, you know, what the other one was. I was thinking about that as we were sharing, right? Like, you know, there's a difference between saying, hey, I want to go to Costco and I want to buy this, or hey, I kind of want to go to this store nearby. And it's, oh, I really want to go here today. And you knowing that that's just them saying that's their opinion, right? And you know, you don't lose your voice in the relationship. I don't know what it is like for you, Donna, but you know, for me, I'm more able to do these things that are on my heart, like podcasting in the middle of the day, or you know, expanding my business, or saying, hey, I really want to go to the mountains this weekend. And I have a partner who speaks his mind and his heart, and he also supports me. Like he's in my corner, hardcore. And you know, I'd love for you to share, you know, your journey there a little bit, just so we can leave people with some hope that you can get out, you can find the healing. And then if you still want to have that relationship, if that desire of your heart is still there, it's possible, right? Not even possible, but it will happen if you put it out there. And so, you know, sort of there's so many reasons to leave if you know you need to leave, but you know, sort of that light at the end of the tunnel is that.
yeah. And that, you know, I met my now husband, and I remember at the beginning I would panic if I was late, and I would phone him and say, I'm on my way, you know, and at first he was kind of like, well, you get here when you get here, like you don't need to phone and tell me. And but he realized that it was just, for me, it was just still triggers, like, and there was times where I go through triggers now still, but it's knowing that, like you said, when it's a trigger because it's something to worry about, or if it's a trigger because that's just normal banter. And you know, I remember when we had our first big argument,
Yeah.
and I was kind of freaking out about it, and then I thought, you know what, the fact that I feel strong enough to fight back, not physically,
Yeah.
but
No, no,
stand
yeah.
around and give my opinion, and not have someone hold a grudge for a week and not talk to me.
Mhm.
You know, he speaks his mind, I speak my mind. He supports me 100%. He's the complete opposite of what my ex.
Yeah. Like, wow.
And you know, it's one of those things where he'll speak his mind, and at first it was, you know, even just a raised voice would just kind of have me withdraw a bit. And I remember him, you know, getting upset about something, and it wasn't me, it was something else, and it just, the loud voice, I kind of held back in that. And then he just forgets about it. He leaves it. He gets it off his chest and that's it. There's no grudges. So that took a lot of getting used to, and me being allowed to talk to other men at work or neighbors coming over and, not having to retreat into the house because I wasn't allowed to talk to other men. All these things that you sort of get used to and just start thinking are normal, and they're not. And boy, when you find someone that's not like that, you start to really realize what you were in and just how wrong it was.
Yeah. I know, I often think about that, like when people say, well, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? And I'd be like, focus on loving yourself first and learn some good boundaries, make some great girlfriends and travel, because you will meet some amazing, men who respect you, who respect your thought process, that you can agree to disagree, and you don't have to lose anything to the other one. That was so big in some of my first, like you say, disagreements, because you don't agree with everybody all the time. And we would agree to disagree, and he'll say things like, I think we're just going to agree to disagree. And I'm like, I didn't lose anything by not agreeing, right? I didn't have to give up my position. We can have difference of it. Like, it's amazing to realize they're like, oh, or you have those days where you do something wrong or you make a mistake or whatever it is, and you realize this didn't affect the relationship, right? The person's like, whatever. Oh, good, I forgive you, right? Oh, I forgot about this meeting, right? Like, oh my goodness. And so I really want to drive that point home for women, because I know for me, and then when I realized I'd found good love, great love, supportive love, I was like, girl, why didn't you love yourself enough? And then that was a whole nother trigger, right, to work through that layer, which was I had not practiced good self-love, which is more than bubble bath. Let's get real. In the subtle abuse that I allowed for so many reasons. And I was like, and that was a big forgiving myself to say, ultimately, my lack of self-love and self-care made me vulnerable to those circumstances and situations, which isn't blame. It's just saying, hey, I can start the healing here. And if I can start the healing here, then healing everywhere else is so possible. And I just want to drive that home for the ladies. Like, Prince Charming doesn't exist, but there's some really great ones.
You'll find it, and
They'll find you, because that's been my experience. Is like, like literally with the one I'm with now. I had literally sworn off. I had done 14 weeks of therapy with, like, I'm not even kidding. I was like, I'm committed to not repeating these mistakes. I'm going to take a year to myself. Like I said, all these great things,
yeah.
which we do, right? And I had basically crawled out of 14 weeks of therapy, and an emotional healer helped me work on my feminine balance. So learning I could be feminine and not so masculine, and having to hold it all together, right? So just learning that I'm capable, right? That whatever happens today, I can handle it. Crawled out, and she had said, you should text, text somebody who'll take you out for a cup of coffee. And I was like, I don't want to date. I'm not ready to date yet. No, not gonna happen. And she said, well, okay, just coffee. And for some weird reason, there was somebody in my back of my mind. I'm surely not going to text that one. Like, no way, no how. Wouldn't you know it? I dropped my daughter off to see her dad. I've got some time on my hands, and I find myself texting this person. I'm like, oh, he won't be busy. Anyway, long story short, it was the perfect timing, the perfect moment, and we connected as friends. And I showed up to basically say, I'm going through a ton of healing right now. And I'm sure one day I'll be ready for love, but I don't want you to think that this coffee is going to be anything but just coffee. And to his credit, he said, sure, and accepted where I was at. And again, I want to point that out to ladies listening. The good ones will not try to push you to the next level, even though I knew he would have loved it had been more than coffee. And he went, sure, let's do coffee, and respected that. And that respect continued throughout until the point where we are, here together and building a life. And I just remember thinking, even that's different. There was no argument. There was no shame in what I shared. He went, wow, good for you. Way to be vulnerable. Like, it was just So anyway, ladies, trust me, when you run into it, it's okay if it kind of makes you go, what? And they won't be afraid of the past and what you've been through. They'll just take it on the lip and they'll say things like, yeah, I got some stuff too. Let me tell you about my stuff. And all of a sudden you realize that there's just a whole nother world of relationships, male and female, that are out there for you when you can really own what you went through. So
Yeah. There's trust your instincts, trust your gut, listen to that, and that all comes with self-love and self-confidence, is just, being in tune with yourself and listening to that. And that's what I did. I mean, it was all of a sudden watching a chick flick by myself at night. And I just went, it was like, now's the time. It was just so weird, it's like, okay, I'm ready. And, and then I met my husband, like, I think it was 2 days later.
Yeah. And again, I wanted to leave people with that because, I remember going through a lot of the healing and feeling like I am never going to be whole enough again to even offer myself in a relationship or not feel so incredibly broken. And I knew I didn't want to immediately go and make it a bandage, right? Like I wasn't looking for that. And that was profoundly different for me and almost scary when I was sort of tiptoeing into this relationship, being like, am I doing this to not deal with something? Or am I dealing with this because I actually would like to be here and this person wants to be with me? And, he even comments like, you're kind of throwing like all of the stuff at me all at once. And I said, like, look, I don't want to do it again. So, how do we deal with this? And, sorry. And again, I wanted to leave it for women that, you can still be in process and still be working through it. And you'll find people that, as Mark says, you find your person and your personal work continues. And that has been such a cornerstone of our relationship. We are both still two human beings working to be our best selves. And we just happen to have found someone that we really want to walk side by side with as we do that.
So, yeah, there's hope out there.
There is hope out there. Oh my goodness. Well, Donna, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to share space with you today. And to just, talk about some of these things from both ends of the spectrum. And for my listeners, the drill, like, love, share, comment. It really does. It really is important to get this kind of stuff out there. This is going to be part of a mini series on women empowerment and helping women to know that there are solutions and there are some stories of hope and there are, ways to get from point A to point B. And all of the information to get in touch will, of course, be in the show notes. So it's easy for you to find. And of course, again, Donna, thank you so much for connecting with me today. It means the world to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, and congratulations.
Thank you.
On your new journey.
Well, it's been an interesting one, let me tell you. Anyway, well, thank you. And for the rest of you, we will catch you on the flip side. Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that, however, had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me.
making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. One simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee, but I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.